All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vang, real estate agent, loan officer, and investor. And welcome to Living Local with Lore, a new live podcast type interview show where we're going to explore different cities throughout the US. One of the benefits that we have as being agents of EXP, we're in all 50 states, multiple cities. So if you're thinking about moving, relocating, or just curious on what life is really like in different parts of the country, this show's for you. So today I have special guest Johnny Vang, and he is from the Twin Cities. And so he's a top local agent there, as well as a mortgage broker owner. And he's lived there for quite a while. He's going to show us around virtually and give us a scoop on what the housing market is like there, um, as well as talk about the lifestyle and what you can expect if you're planning to move there. So let me introduce Johnny here, or let's have Johnny introduce himself here. Johnny, go ahead.
Uh,
Tell us what you're about.
yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, so I'm Johnny Vang, realtor for about a decade and mortgage loan originator or in the mortgage industry for about 2 decades. Um, I've been serving the Twin Cities here, so both Minneapolis and St. Paul here in Minnesota, uh, pretty much the whole entire time that I've been in the real estate career. And so, yeah, we're going to be going over all the different aspects of the whole entire Twin Cities, including some of the suburbs and so on.
Awesome. So let's talk about your business a little bit. Do you have like a niche? Do you have a certain type of clientele that you help serve more than others?
Yeah, so my number one or I should say, the bulk of my clients right now are people who are upgrading in homes. So people who are going from that first home, the first time that they bought it, they're selling that, and then they're going to be moving up into usually a new construction home or a bigger home. People who are in specific professional. And I think that represents about 50% of what I do, followed by investors, which is about 25% of what I do. And then everything beyond that will be, like first time home buyers, those that are relocating into the area and so on. So that's currently where I'm at. Prior to that, for a few years there, I was doing exclusively short-term rentals. And so as of now, we're back to kind of the norm versus just isolating myself on a specific niche. So there's a bunch of different things that I've learned about over the years and pretty much I think can help in every aspect, right? So
All right, awesome. So are you guys currently in a seller's market or a buyer's market right now?
yeah, so right now, I think it depends on the specific house. For the most part, we're in a seller's market. We're seeing multiple offers on homes that are just coming out brand new onto the market. Um, Places like Oakdale to and later on we'll show you a map so you can get an idea of what it looks like. But there's going to be a bunch of different cities that are going to be a little bit more popular than others. But for the most part across the Twin Cities, anything that's less than 30 days on the market, you're going to be seeing multiple offers. Now, if it passes 30 days, then you can kind of look at those specific properties as a buyer's market because we can actually go in and we can negotiate a little bit more.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean it like sounds very similar to what I'm seeing right now in Milwaukee, my market.
Mhm.
Very heavy for sellers right now, benefiting sellers, right? And buyers got to move quick. So, you mentioned a map. Now, for a person who's not familiar with the Twin Cities, it is mainly consists of Minneapolis and St. Paul. However, like you mentioned to me before we started, there's a whole bunch of other suburbs and cities. Can you kind of pull up that Google map and let's have like a virtual tour of, get more familiar with what your market looks like?
Yeah. So here's what the map looks like. Um, So Minneapolis is, I think, the larger city, and its suburbs are the larger cities. So my assumption is you can see my mouse, right? So
Yeah, we can
and
see that.
then St. Paul is here, right? And then of course it's got, all these different suburbs. Now, we do stretch out, right? Like, so you'll see some of us will go all the way up north here to Princeton, Cambridge, and North Branch. It's a pretty big um area that we cover. We cover all of, like, so me and my team, we cover all of the Twin Cities. Um so earlier I was talking about Oakdale, like this area right here is super hot. Woodbury is always super hot. And then, you got places on the northwest side over here. Brooklyn Park is hot. You got Maple Grove is hot. Champlin is hot. I mean, there's plenty of different places. And then once you go down here, there's, most of the outskirts, you're going to be seeing multiple offers, right? If you're talking, North Minneapolis right here, um, my thoughts are is that you're going to be able to at least get some seller concessions, right? So hopefully that gives you an idea of what, if someone comes into the market, and what the market's going to look like. Of course, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, both those locations are going to be a little bit more dense in population.
So would you say that your inventory is more urban versus the more spacious lots, things like that?
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, most of what I handle is inside of. So we have these highways, right? 494 that travels around to 694. And it's basically like a big loop around the Twin Cities. These are all pretty much urban and suburban areas. In order to go out of that area, you got to go like far north. Like this would, if you go out to Hem Lake, Andover, Ramsey, Forest Lake, and some of these locations that are further out, maybe Lake Elmo, and then all the way to like Maple Plains. Those areas are more rural. You can get more than 1 acre, right? Everything that falls within this big circle, right? 494, 694. For the most part, it's going to be difficult to find something with at least an acre of property, right? So that's what you would be looking at.
All right. And then so, some one of the questions I always have for people I meet up in the Twin Cities is like, hey, which city is better? Right? So this might cause a lot of people to fight amongst each other. Should I be living on the St. Paul side? Should I be living on the Minneapolis side, right? And it seems like people really love or hate one side or the other. What do you have to share about that?
Yeah, so there's always been a rivalry between the two cities. And I think that the question is, do you live on the east side of so this is the Mississippi, right? Comes through. And do you live on the east side of the Mississippi or do you live on the west side of the Mississippi? And if you're in the St. Paul area, you're gonna love St. Paul. St. Paul, I feel like they move a little bit slower. And not in a bad way, right? Just more slower, as in like they live life a little bit slower and more comfortable. You'll see the speed limits are a little bit slower. But in Minneapolis, everybody is, driving over the speed limit. So if you're a fast-paced person, Minneapolis is going to be a better place for you. However, if you like the calm and the environment that's going to be kind of like smooth going, you're going to probably want to be on the St. Paul side. Now, I personally think that the Minneapolis side is going to be the better side because I'm a busy person, right? I like doing work. I like the types of restaurants that are on the Minneapolis side. Of course, St. Paul's got, good restaurants too, but Minneapolis is just it's bigger. My thoughts are it's a little bit better. The the locations, I mean, it depends on what it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for kind of the higher end, you're going to be looking in the Minnetonka to Wayzata, which is way over here, or even down here in the Edina area, Richfield area. Those are going to be your higher end locations. And then, of course, if you want the really nice, um, place where, they have big houses and they're still affordable and there's still, like a lot going on within the city. You got like Maple Grove, right? Um, Brooklyn Park is a little bit more urban. That's where I am, right? You got a denser population there, but Maple Grove is nice. There's still parts of it that's growing, and then of course the Twin Cities is growing outwards, and so you're seeing more homes in Rogers and kind of like the Dayton area as well as the Champlin area, as well as pretty much south too, right? You can go south all the way down to Burnsville and Lakeville. Growing. They've been growing for like maybe the last, let's say five year-ish. Um, and so um it's for the most part, I think the Twin Cities, the the side that I prefer is the Minneapolis side. More restaurants that I prefer, more events from basketball to, I mean, you name it, to the bars to pretty much everything else. I'm gonna say that I prefer the Minneapolis side, but if you're Hmong, right, most of my Hmong clients they prefer the St. Paul side. So
All right. So let's show St. Paul some love here as well. Just in case people might think you're biased. What what areas of St. Paul are the hot, trendy areas, the areas of path of progress that people are looking, people that want to live in? Can you talk about a couple top areas over there?
So on the St. Paul side, right, on the east side, we have, like I said, Woodbury is a very well established and still growing town, right? And it's going to be higher end, right? So you're going to be looking at most of the houses there are going to be 500 plus, 500,000 plus, right? And then to the 750-ish, and then if you're doing new construction, it's going to be probably 800 plus, right? Oakdale is also really, really nice. The both of these have on the east side has really good school districts, and so it's definitely something that, if that's what you're looking for, you have kids that are growing up, they have really, really good schools. In addition to that, like the bigger area that's growing is Cottage Grove. There's a ton of new construction going on in Cottage Grove. I think that their new constructions are still pretty reasonable. You're going to be starting at, if you're talking about like a two-story with slab grading, you're looking at maybe about 470, and then they go all the way up to, the millions, right? So it just depends on the type of house. But Cottage Grove definitely is out of the whole entire Twin Cities, this is probably the more booming area where I'm seeing more builders build than most of the Twin Cities.
All right. So let's talk about taxes, right? Now, because prices are important, but taxes also drives a lot of affordability, right? Um, are there different counties that we're looking at here? Was one side cheaper than the other? Where should people be looking? What do they need to know?
So Minneapolis is in Hennepin County, and Hennepin County is the most expensive county for property taxes. The reason is we pay for the Viking Stadium. We pay for, the Timberwolves stuff. So everything that's downtown that's really, really big is going to be in Minneapolis and is going to be part of Hennepin County, which Hennepin County goes pretty far, right? I think you're going all the way into, Maple Grove and all the way down here, right? You're covering a large portion of Hennepin County. Hennepin County is huge. And then if you're on the St. Paul side, you're in Ramsey County for the most part, right? Most of this is going to be Ramsey County. And Ramsey is the second uh, most expensive county in the Twin Cities, right? So you got Hennepin number one, most expensive property taxes. Ramsey number two, still expensive property taxes. A lot of people like to move out to kind of the Washington County area where the taxes are a little bit cheaper, and that's on the east side, and then on the northwest, you're going to be looking at Anoka and Andover. This is in Anoka County, and that's much cheaper than most of the Twin Cities, right? So, if you're looking for cheaper property tax, I think Anoka, Andover, Ramsey, that's kind of where you want to be.
Perfect, perfect. So Yeah, I mean, taxes do play a big role, not just pricing, right? But
Mhm.
okay, so that's very useful information. I think if I ever decided to move to Minneapolis, I kind of know where I want to go now.
Well,
Um,
so the thing is that it's not just the taxes are cheaper, the insurance is also cheaper in those areas too, right? So if you're in Hennepin County, especially if you're like dead center in Minneapolis, like anywhere around here, you're going to be looking at much higher insurance rates than the rest of the Twin Cities. I think it's just because of um the amount of density and the people, claiming insurance and so on, right?
got it. Let's talk about pricing for a little bit. What's the average price right now that you're seeing in the Twin Cities?
So I pulled up this realtor.com, right? The average medium listing is 325. The median sold is 345. My thoughts are, right now, as of today, we're seeing anywhere between 300 to 350 is where the bulk of the people are. Um, but most of the things that I'm doing, they're ranging between 350 to I would say 750, right? Is kind of the range that I'm working in. And that being said, because we're looking at upgrades, right? We're not so much looking at um the first time home buyers, which is probably like 50% of the market up here. We're looking at most of the clients that I work with, they're upgrading. And so as they're upgrading, they're buying more expensive homes. So they don't quite fall within the medium homes sold, but um this is what we're seeing. So uh I think this medium home listing price, my thoughts are is that this is off. Um sorry, this is per square foot. So this is good. But if it was 240K, that's like you're not buying much of a house. Maybe a condo, maybe a townhome, but you're not going to get a single family home that's nice in this price range. You're going to be looking at closer to this 345. Even though the listings are coming out at 325, people are, bidding it up and it's being sold for something higher. Um, Now that, like I said, these are kind of starter homes, right? So you have to understand that the bulk of the people buying are first time home buyers. The bulk of the homes being sold are also the first time home buyer type for these. And like maybe a three bedroom, two bath, two car garage. Uh you can get it in the urban area, so Minneapolis, right, and St. Paul. But if you're gonna move out to the suburbs, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive, right? So you got to prepare for that.
All right, so at that, let's call it 350 price point, what kind of home are we getting? Is it existing inventory? Can you show us like click on one of those listings and see what do we get for that amount of money in your market?
Yeah, yeah, we can definitely do that. So let me zoom in real quick. So this is going to be in Minneapolis, right? This is what we're going to be seeing. Something like this for about 350, right? You got a three bedroom, one bath. Let's see, does this one have a garage? Yeah, two car garage, right? So this is kind of your standard home. It's going to be an existing home. It's not going to be, brand new or these are probably built. Well, this one's built in the early 1900s, right? So the likelihood is you're gonna see radiator heating versus oh, this one actually has forced air. So overall, really nice looking, right? For the most part, uh, it's move-in ready, right? This is in specifically in Minneapolis. But if you're gonna move out to, let's say, for example, Brooklyn Park, right? Um, we're gonna be looking at totally different. Oh, didn't take right? I think average home in Brooklyn Park is right around that, 380 to about 425-ish. You're gonna see these split entries, right? I think this is something that, like most people in the Twin Cities, we know about split entries, right? But I think that when I first moved here, I've never heard of split entries, right? We knew about multi-level, so anything that's 3 levels and more. We knew about two-story homes. We knew about, your ranch or your one level, but these split entries, as soon as you walk in, usually you see stairs and then it's either up or down, right? And when you walk into them, they made it so that the basement is lifted and it gets natural lighting in, right? Which they are really nice, but that's kind of what you're going to see. It's probably in the 380 to 400, right? 380 to 400 range. 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 2,000 square feet, um, with a acre lot, right? So we're seeing this all over the place, but I can tell you this one's going to be like, this one's a coming soon, right? Guarantee you this one will go for more than this price. Just looking at the images, you can already tell. But
Okay, okay. So split entry, I've never heard of that either. So it's just like what you said. You can go as soon as you open the front door, you go up or down.
yep, yep.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah, we can here. Let me actually go into the matrix, right? So you guys can actually see more
Yeah,
photos.
I know. So I know you guys call like ranch homes like ramblers and things like that.
Mhm. Yep.
So different terminology, things like that. But what other things do people need to know, like if they're going to buy a house in your market? You mentioned so that particular one had a basement that is partially exposed, right? So meaning that
Mhm.
it actually has bigger windows and it's more of like a livable basement, right? Is that common up there for that style home?
Yeah, so it's super common, right? It's super common. They're not building it out as much anymore, but within the Twin Cities, anything that was built like I would say, I shouldn't say anything. I should say a large portion of the houses that were built in the like 1980s to even the 2000s were split entry, right? And so you're seeing just a ton of split entries out there. And I think that, if something that you like for the most part, I think people do here in the Twin Cities, people like it, right? But in like you said, most people that are from, other cities probably have never heard of it, right? But there's a ton of them. There's a ton of them. Of course, there's a ton of, ranches or ramblers, as well as a ton of two stories. But I think that in the immediate suburbs, so right outside of Minneapolis and right outside of St. Paul, you're going to see the split entries. And then as you go further out, you're going to see more two stories, right? Um, so that's kind of how the Twin Cities work. Like I'm looking for a photo. Okay, so here's a photo of what it looks like, right? As soon as you walk in, this is probably the foyer right here, and then you see stairs going up and stairs going down, right? So that's a split entry. But like I said, downstairs have a ton of natural lighting versus if you have a two-story home and you go down to the basement, it's kind of dark, right?
Got it. Okay. So in my market, Milwaukee, where we have a lot of basements, we have a lot of basement issues as well. Do you guys have a lot of those things? Is that something people should know about?
So I think in Milwaukee, the ages of home are a little bit older, right? So my assumption is that it's similar in St. Paul. There are issues with basements in St. Paul just because of the during the time in the early 1900s and how they built out the basement walls. They built it with like they stacked rocks, right? Boulders. They stacked boulders, and when you're seeing those kind of things, I mean, some of them are super solid, right? I think for the most part, it's pretty good, but like if you're going through some of the, like the late 1800s to the early 1900 homes, you'll see that the floor is not totally level. And that's because of just, shifting, right? There's shifting involved. And of course, people are in St. Paul, they're kind of used to that. And maybe some in Minneapolis where, the neighborhoods are older, but for the most part, a ton of the suburbs were built in the 80s and after that. And so you're not going to see any wall issues, right? You're going to see just like, especially these split entries, they're usually pretty sound. You walk in, you don't see any damages to the foundation or anything difficult. But in Dead Center St. Paul, same with Dead Center Minneapolis, you might see one or two foundation issues. Um, for the most part, I haven't run across one where we had to fix it, right? Where the foundation needed to be fixed. Have we seen ones that, had to have drain tiles put in? Yeah, absolutely. But not one that where the foundation's so bad that you actually have to fix the foundation.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, in Milwaukee, more of our homes have actually like full basements where they actually go deeper into the ground.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of those issues where the foundation walls are leaning in or out, bowing. So
Mhm.
those things need to be, repaired, where they have to get bracing. Some might have to get excavation. So, and of course, drain tiles, that's a pretty common thing as well if you have water issues. So, while we're on the topic of like construction and things like that, you mentioned, um, in the chat, the comments here on Facebook, we have a comment about new condo construction. Do you have any knowledge on that? Is there a lot of new condos going up, like a lot of major cities?
So I think that there's more townhomes going up than condos, but there are definitely new condos going up. In fact, we know of one in Maplewood, right? So right off of 36 in English, right? There's going to be one that's going to be going in. I think that is, let's see here, right around here-ish. Like I think actually down here. So there are there condos being put in, new condos? Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're looking at, like so here in Minnesota, right, in the North Loop, right? So there's this area called the North Loop that is kind of like, your hip location. It's the location where all the young professionals kind of live and hang out, right? In this specific area, they don't like any condo that they have, they're not selling them, they're just renting them out, right? So are there condos here for sale? Yeah, absolutely. But they're not the newer, nicer condos, right? So just know that when you're going into it, if you want to live in a condo kind of in a hip area, you're likely gonna have to rent it out. Unless there's just one that fits you really, really well. There, like I said, there are homes for sale there. They're not as new, they're a little older, and as long as you're okay with that, and they do have high rises and so on. But yeah, condos are being built all over the Twin Cities. You got a bunch of like South Minneapolis here has the mixed use properties where they have condos on top and then, the businesses below, right? So if that's something that you like, South Minneapolis is definitely a great place for that. And then of course, St. Paul's doing some of that as well. So
Got it. Okay. Do you happen to know like the average cost for those new condos? What are they going for?
350 plus, right, for the newer ones. For ones that, so the thing about condos in the Twin Cities here is insurance has gone up pretty significantly, and you're looking at pretty high um HOA dues, right? If you're in the North Loop, you're probably over $600 a month, right? In just HOA dues. Most of the North Loop is probably going to be $800 and up for HOA dues. So I think if you're gonna look for a condo, you could probably find, like you can find one in Edina for maybe like 150, but then you're gonna be looking at 600 plus HOA dues. So just for that amount, a lot of people prefer to just go ahead and buy a single family home. But if that's the environment you're looking for, they exist, they're out there. Yeah, of course, just reach out, right?
All right. So let's talk about infrastructure. There's a lot of highways. There's obviously a lot of population. Something that somebody needs to know before they move. How bad is the traffic?
So the traffic is actually pretty good as long as you're not in rush hour, right? If you're in rush hour, you're gonna see like red all over kind of like this area right here. You're gonna see red all among here. And when I say red, I mean like Google Maps, right? If you're traveling using your GPS, you're gonna see that it's busy, right? This area usually is pretty busy. Um, but so the main highways, right? You got 494, 694, 94 that runs across through the center and then connects back with 694 up here. You got 394 that runs across the Minneapolis side. 94 is the one that runs across the St. Paul side. You got 35W, right, which splits down the middle of Minneapolis. Then you got 35E, right, which splits down the middle of St. Paul. And so any of those major roads during your rush hour period, it's just going to be busy and you're going to have to be okay with it being busy. Now, like, I've traveled through a bunch of different cities and one that I like to compare the traffic to is Chicago, right? In Chicago, um, you got stop and go, right? We normally never have the stop and go, right? It doesn't happen very often. The only time I see it happen is when we have construction, right? Which always happens during the summer, but that's something to be expected, right? When you're in a big town, when there's construction, you're going to see stop and go. If there's no construction, we're moving, right? At the worst case scenario during rush hour, it's you're going to be looking at like maybe 30 miles an hour, so it's pretty decent. But you got to also remember we're in the north, right? So like, I mean, we're as close to Canada as possible, right? So Canada's right up here. We're in Minnesota here. Um, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is weather impacts how people drive. Like for some reason, people just can't drive in the winter or when snow hits the ground. I mean, everyone slips on ice. There is no like you cannot stop on ice, right? I mean, unless you're going ice fishing and you have, winter tires and everything and you're out on the actual ice, right? you're uh you're probably gonna slip, right? So just be careful, of course, during the winter times, and take it a little bit slower. Try not to go like if you're seeing heavy snow or ice, try to stay below, 40 miles an hour. Usually you're gonna be just fine if you stay, but well, I mean, look, I'm not a psychic or anything and know exactly what's going to happen to you or not happen to you, but my suggestion is, if you're a scared driver, stay below 30. If you're an aggressive driver, stay below 40. You don't want to you don't want to slip on ice and then cause a major accident or anything like that. But yeah, like we do. One thing I like to say about, the traffic and everything is we usually only have summer and winter here, right? So you might see spring for 2 weeks to a month. You might see fall for, 2 weeks to a month. But right after that, you go right into winter. And because the change is so fast and because it does get cold, we do get ice. And so just, be aware of that. Um, but yeah, for the most part, I think for a major city like ours, we don't get super bad traffic. I think that the roadways are created pretty well so that, the traffic flows pretty well. There's a few spots that are just going to be, like high traffic flow, but outside of that, most of the Twin Cities is pretty good.
Awesome. Sounds good. I hear you guys have some good potholes as well, right? So, um, but yeah, I mean, sounds very similar to Milwaukee where I'm at. We basically have like two seasons, right? You have your winter and then you have your construction season. And right now it's construction season. Cones everywhere. So, the traffic doesn't sound too terrible, but let's talk about snow, right? So, something that I don't like anymore, snow. I know that, Milwaukee, we do have some seasons where we get quite a lot, and it's very kind of rare actually, but most for the most part we don't get too much snow. We might get that one year where we get dumped on, but What about you guys in Minneapolis? Do you guys always get a lot of snow? Is that a bad assumption that, we just don't know about? What do you see up there?
So we don't always get a lot of snow, but something that, I had to get used to. So I'm from Lansing, Michigan originally, right? And we had snow there too. But the snow usually melted, or if it didn't melt, it like it it was kind of the soft snow, right? And when I say soft snow, I mean like it's more like packing snow, if that makes sense, right? So it's kind of wet. And eventually it just dissolves, right? You come to the Twin Cities here during the winters, if there is snowfall, like usually we get, 2, 3 major snowfalls, right? The snow just doesn't go away. It just builds up until summer hits and then it all melts. And so um it's kind of it's kind of different because it just stays there. Like there's been times where we've had like 4 feet of snow just sitting outside because it snowed for like 2 months or something, or like it snowed every other week or something like that for 2 months, and the snow just collected, and there's like 4 feet of snow out there. Now, does that happen often? No, right? And the honest truth is, our road guys, when it comes to traffic, right? Our road guys that cleans up the snow, they're phenomenal. Like I'm I've never seen any other town move snow like our guys, our traffic guys, right? So that means that heavy snowfall fall happens, right? The next day, by the end of the next day, the snows are off the roads, right? And I can't say that for the specific towns, but I'm talking about like highways, right? The snows are off. I live in Brooklyn Park. It's almost the same thing, right? But I do know that in St. Paul, they wait till the snow is a certain level before they start shoveling it or removing it. And so, um, like St. Paul has a little bit more, more has to deal with snow a little bit more. But on the Minneapolis side, so far, what I've seen is as soon as, like heavy snowfall hits, the guys come out, they remove the snow. And is it in our yards? Yeah. But is it on the streets? Usually you won't see it unless it's during the snowfall.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's always a good thing that you can drive and get around town even when the
Mhm.
snow's there. So let's talk about, what do people do like to do out there? Obviously snow is a big part of it. You kind of have to be willing to deal with that, right? What do people that live out in the Twin Cities do year round?
So I'll start with our summers, right? Our summers are actually great. Um, in the summertime, we have tons of parks in the Twin Cities. We have tons of great places to go eat at, rooftops that, are open so that you can actually eat on the rooftops. Um, you have like a bunch of sporting events, anything from soccer, football, um, basketball, pickleball, I mean, you name it. There's a ton of things that you can do. Like a lot of the parks and even the schools have converted all of their tennis areas over to pickleball. So pickleball is kind of a big thing right now. A lot of people are out playing that, and it's uh it's definitely something that, people are doing. I think a lot of hiking is done during that season. We have, your Japanese gardens uh to just waterfalls inside of Minneapolis and St. Paul to pretty much, like anything you really want to do, I think you can do like that you can do anywhere else in any other summers you could do in the Minneapolis and St. Paul area. So within the Twin Cities. Um, I do think that, like during the winter, that a lot of winter sports are out there. Like so a lot of people they go tubing, right? For example. Although that's not a sport, they go tubing, they take their kids to the park and they just ride these big old, tire looking tubes down the hills, right? And they're skiing, right? There's hiking in the snow as well, or cross country skiing. There's plenty of things to do. Like a lot of friends that I used to have would take their snowmobiles and they would go north, right? And where there's a ton of snow so that they can actually ride their snowmobiles. Then of course you have like I know a ton of people that love ice fishing where they go right onto the lake, they drill a hole and then they just go ahead and fish on the lake itself, right? So um there's plenty of things to do both in the summer and in the winter and, all year round. Um, I just prefer to work, so I'm just, with clients all the time, taking them out to look at houses. It doesn't matter if it's winter, we're in a storm, we still go out. And but I mean, we enjoy looking at homes, so that's what we do.
Any any must see like local events or festivals that go on every year?
I mean, there's a ton, right? Just because the Twin Cities is so big, every city is always doing something different. Um, I don't pay super close attentions to the events, but I mean, they usually have a like they celebrate different events. Like here in the Twin Cities, we're super diverse, right? So we have like the Hmong New Year, right? The Hmong J4 Freedom Tournament. Those are huge in the St. Paul area. And then of course the Indian groups, they also have New Year celebrations. Same with the Chinese folks. They have, your lunar celebrations, and then they have the dragon boat races in St. Paul. So there's a ton of super awesome events that you can go to across all of the Twin Cities. Almost like, I mean, you couldn't hit every single one up just because the Twin Cities is so big, and every city is always celebrating something. Here in Brooklyn Park, we're getting ready for Tater Days, which is just a parade that goes through the city, and then they have a carnival after that. So there's there's a ton to do if you want to do something. For me, we just you know I just prefer to relax, do some hiking, sometimes go to like a speakeasy bar and just hang out with friends. But like there's like for me, I'm big on food, right? I'm huge on food. I'm also, the size of someone that's big on food. And so when you look at that, like because we're so diverse, you can get anything from Japanese food, Hmong food, Chinese food, Thai food, Korean, Somalian, Ethiopian, Mexican, Salvadorian. I mean, you name it, Brazilian steakhouses and American steakhouses and burgers, right? There's so many different food places that it's just great here in the Twin Cities. And so if you're a foodie like me, that's what you do. You just go to different restaurants, right? And try different things.
Yeah, speaking of food and events, you guys are kind of known for the state fair, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Our state fair is huge. I think if we're not the biggest, we're like second, right? And our state fair, it comes around right before Labor Day weekend, right? 2 weeks before Labor Day weekend, we have our state fair in St. Paul. Like thousands, I think tens of thousands of people gather there during that time period and go through. They have deep fried everything, right? Like, if you want something deep fried, you could probably find it there. They usually have like alligator, corn, your cheese curds. These days they have pho there, right? So if you like pho, they have pho there. They have just, I mean, you name it, there's just so much stuff going on at the state fair. People go through and they look at, so like here in the Twin Cities, we're also a big agricultural area, right? And so of course they come out to the state fair, they bring their animals, right? And so, or the baby animals, so that you can pet them, you can feed them at the state fair. And then of course they have, every day during the state fair, they have a concert that goes on in the evening, right? So whether you're into country music or rap or any of that kind of stuff, there's always going to be a day. Even like a Christian concert goes on there every so often. So the state fair has always got a concert that takes place in the evening, but for the most part, it's just a fun-filled day for most people. Um, and then they always shoot fireworks afterwards too, which is always awesome to see.
Got it. I'm gonna have to put that on my calendar here. I've never been to the Minnesota State Fair. Been to the Wisconsin one. It's pretty good, I would say, but I think nationally, Minnesota has a pretty good one that's known nationwide as well as Texas. So
Yeah.
gotta put those two on my list to go visit. Speaking about jobs, you mentioned you guys have a lot of agriculture, things like that, right? But we got to talk about, hey, how do we pay for these houses, right? So, what are the major industries in the Twin Cities that you guys are known for?
Yeah, so I pulled up a list, right? We have more than 10 Fortune 500 companies. So that's something that what I really, really like about the Twin Cities is that you can always find a job, right? Because there's more than 10 Fortune 500 companies inside of the Twin Cities. We kind of have our own microeconomy. So when the rest of the world is hurting, we're kind of doing fine, right? During the Great Recession, right? Um, I felt like for the most part, people could still find jobs. People could still afford their homes, right? Now, did we have a crash? Yeah, absolutely. The whole entire United States had a crash during that time. But our crash didn't hurt as much. Like after about a year, we were right kind of back to normal. And so that's something that's really good. So, our number one, I think, Fortune 500 company is United Health. And of course, we got Target Corp. Um, CHS, which is an agricultural company. We have it's not here on the list, but we also have, oh, actually it is. It's Best Buy. Best Buy is here. We got US Bank is here. Um, we have 3M, right? I don't know why their logo's not showing up, but 3M is, super huge here. General Mills, we have another like a CH Robinson, which is a logistics or transportation company. Land O'Lakes is here, right? Better known for probably their butter. Um, and we have other institutions like Ameriprise Financial, right? So we have like pretty much everything from insurance to retail to agricultural, electronics, banking, finances, cereal, I mean, and adhesives, right? To I mean, I think that the Twin Cities is just super diverse in the types of businesses that are here and the wealth of knowledge that is here. I think that, if someone wants to come in and grow from a professional standpoint, they have every opportunity to come in and go into a field that, would support their needs and allow them to grow. Of course, every single one of these companies also need someone in tech to be able to support the tech industry because it's just, tech is very dominant here in today's world, right? So that's something that I know we have Microsoft here, we have Wells Fargo, right, which isn't based out of the Twin Cities, but they have large campuses here that we do need people to be employed at to support the businesses. So I think that if you're worried about employment, you can come here and you could probably find something. I know that we get a lot of people that relocate from the Chicago and Milwaukee areas just because there's just more opportunity here. Um, and then, a lot of these companies are extremely stable. And so because they're stable, you come in, you won't hear as many layoffs as you do for companies that are based outside of the Twin Cities.
All right, got it. Yeah, I know a couple friends that work for like medical companies, right? Like Boston Scientific.
Yep.
There's other ones
Medtronic.
too, right? Yeah, Medtronics, right? Those are
Mhm.
pretty big out there. And then of course you guys have U of M, right?
Yep. Yep.
So right, the
And then the Mayo partners with us here in the Twin Cities, right? The Mayo Clinic down in Rochester, they partner with us up here in the Twin Cities. And so, from everything from the medical devices all the way to actual, medical doctors, uh, like there's there's a lot of opportunity here in the Twin Cities.
yeah, awesome. So you talking about food a lot got me kind of hungry. So let's see. Let's wrap up the interview here. I want to, respect your time and
Mhm.
thanks for all the information you're giving out. But if we were to come to town, right, we had one meal we could share with you, Johnny. Where are you going to take us?
My favorite place is let's see here, Valdemar, right? So this is their website. It's a fancy place. It's a steakhouse. But they have like the best service, the best steakhouse. Like an example is One time I went there and they made the mistake of giving my friend my steak and giving me his, right? And so I like my steak cooked medium rare. Like most of us say, it shouldn't be cooked any other way, right? But my friend prefers it, medium well. So I get it. It still tastes good. No big deal. I was eating into it, and my friend was like, my steak is just too raw, right? And I was like, yeah, mine is a little bit, it's definitely not medium rare, but I can eat it. And he was like, I can't eat this. And I was like, okay, well then we'll just tell the waitress. Well, she comes in and I'm like, hey, so I think you swapped our steaks, and I've already started eating his. So do you mind, just and before I could finish, she was like, I am so sorry. We're bringing two new steaks out. And they cooked it the way that we want it, brought out two new steaks, right? So the service is phenomenal, right? The food is good, right? Even though it wasn't medium rare, it still tasted really good, right? And then of course, I think the only downside is and it probably is an upside for most people, their drinks are pretty strong, right? And so I kind of like flavor in my drinks, but their drinks are super strong. And I don't even drink anymore, but when I did, I preferred a more flavorful drink than a strong like hit with alcohol drink. But theirs is yeah, they're generous on the liquor side if you like that, right? So it's always nice. So next time you come to town, we'll have to do it if you haven't been to Baltimore yet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. How about something a little bit more affordable, like a affordable fast option where we don't have to sit down, fine dining? How about that? What's your choice for that? Uh, like uh,
Fast options.
like a more local, not necessarily fast food, but more like a hole in the wall spot, you know.
So there's two spots I always take my clients to if they're close by where I am, and both of them are in Brooklyn Park. One is Fat Nats, right? It's a breakfast joint. So if on the weekends you want to meet up with me, I usually meet up with people, partners and so on at about 7 o'clock, right? On Saturdays at Fat Nats. That's where we go. Fat Nats is like it's breakfast. Like I said, it's affordable. Um, and then the other place is a place called Tan V. Um, it's close by. It's a Vietnamese joint. If you like pho, if you like the vermicelli salad, if you like sesame chicken, right? That place is really good for really cheap in comparison to a lot of the other Asian restaurants that are out there. And so we dig that place. Me and the kids go there all the time. And like if that's kind of my kids' go-to spot, if we don't know where to go, they're like, let's go to Dandi, right? So
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds more like my kind of place. We should definitely try that next time. So, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for giving us a personal tour of your city and your market. You definitely gave us a lot of insight for anyone who's thinking about buying, moving, if you were to live there, maybe looking for different areas to live in. Um, Before we go, what is your contact info if anybody wants to reach out to you?
yeah, so they can always reach me on Facebook, right? Facebook is definitely pretty easy. My business Facebook is Johnny Vang, right? It's just you just type in Johnny Vang, it'll show up. It'll show that I'm a real estate agent. In addition to that, if you want to find my mortgage brokerage, you just go to Win-Win Financial. So that's WIN financial.com. That's my website, as well as you can find me on Facebook on that as well. And then if you want to just be friends with me on Facebook, you can just do a friend request. My in our culture we have elder names, right? And so my elder name is Notja, so it's spelled Nomtsa, and then Johnny Vang after that. That would be my personal Facebook. Go ahead and just hit me up, friend me, message me, right? Otherwise you can always call me, right? 763-213-7991, or shoot me an email at johnny at winwinfinancial.com, or shoot me an email at johnny.vang at exprealty.com. So plenty of ways to reach out to me.
All right, Johnny. Well, thank you so much for your time. And if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to Johnny about the Twin Cities market. He'll help you out. So that's it for today. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks,
All
Johnny.
right. Thanks for having me.